Greetings. I'm Askia Muhammad, News Director. And you're tuned to member-supported WPFW, Washington.
Welcome to Voices with Vision, a progressive mix of voices, news, music, and spoken word, brought to you by the DC Radio Co-op and played on WPFW 89.3 FM, Washington, D.C., every Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Bring out the rebel, bring out the rebel, bring out the rebel.
I'm Reem Kathuda.
Today's show will examine the relationship of complicity between the media, the police, and the state in the case of the extrajudicial killing of Miriam Carey. And then with Brother Gnaka Lagoke, we'll go to Africa with a look at the life of President Thomas Sankara and current events in Ivory Coast. But we'll be right back. As usual with Voices with Vision, we begin with Palestine Today.
Welcome to Palestine Today, a service of the International Middle East Media Center at www.imemc.org for Monday, October 7th, 2013. Israeli settlers attack Palestinian villages and destroy property as troops invade communities and kidnap a number of civilians. These stories and more coming up. Stay tuned. Israeli settlers attacked on Monday a number of West Bank communities and vandalized a mosque and destroyed a number of Palestinian-owned cars. Settlers also cut off trees owned by local farmers. A group of extremist Israeli settlers burned 2 Palestinian cars and attacked a mosque in Beit Iksa village, northwest of occupied Jerusalem, and wrote racist anti-Islamic graffiti. Local sources in Beit Iksa said that the settlers invaded the village during early dawn hours and burned 2 cars. The sources added that the settlers came from remote illegal settlement. Elsewhere, a number of extremist Israeli settlers cut off several olive trees in Ras Karkar village west of Ramallah in central West Bank. Residents said that the settlers destroyed around 10 olive trees, then fled the scene. In other news, Israeli soldiers invaded Beit Ummar and Idna towns near the southern West Bank city of Hebron and kidnapped 3 Palestinians. Also near Hebron, dozens of soldiers invaded Lasafa area near Yatta and handed the residents military warrants ordering them to remove their solar panels. The village is one of 8 Palestinian villages Israel wants to destroy in the area, as the villages are not recognized by the civil administration officer run by the Israeli military occupying Palestine. Earlier on Monday, dozens of Israeli soldiers invaded Azzun Atma town near the northern West Bank city of Kalkilia and kidnapped 4 children, including an 8-year-old. Local sources said that the children were playing in a Palestinian olive orchard near the main road of the village when the soldiers attacked and kidnapped them. And that's all for today from the IMEMC News. This was the Monday, October 7, 2013 News Roundup from the occupied Palestinian territories. For more news and updates, please visit our website at www.imemc.org. Today's report has been brought to you by George Ishmawi and me, Ressam Bannoura.
While that you were listening to Palestine Today, this is Voices with Vision on WPFW 89.3 FM, and I'm Netfa Freeman. Last Thursday, people were bombarded with news. The corporate media was bombarding us with a depiction they gave of the extrajudicial execution of an unarmed black woman, Miriam Carey, on the Capitol grounds. And since then, we've been seeing all kind of depictions of what's happening or what they're claiming has happened with that. The news is invariably focusing on the alleged motives of Miss Carey and not talking about the actions of the police and how they and why they thought it was necessary to shower this woman with bullets, even though she had a 1-year-old child in the car. So this show, we kind of want to talk about how this case, one, shows, again, the disregard for our lives, black lives, people of African descent, African people, and also how the media is complicit and follows the narratives and takes the lead from the police and the state in so many ways. And it's often said that those who control the narrative control your mind. And so the media, if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, which is ask the cutting-edge questions and investigative questions, then a lot of times many people will take that lead and go down the path of analyzing and determining, trying to determine what motivated something, in this case, Miss Carey, Sister Miriam Carey, to do what she did. And that is a question. We might never know the answer to that. But really, the tragedy of all this is not her motives or what she did, but why the police did what they did, and why are the media not asking certain questions like, could you not shoot out the tires? Why wasn't that thought of? What did she do that was so? Because we're told that she tried to ram the White House, a barricade near the White House. And, those of us who've been around the White House know that's just not an easy thing to do. And if you did try to do it, do you deserve to be executed? So the term extrajudicial killing in this instance, it refers to the fact that if someone did something wrong, then they deserve a trial. And they deserve to be, for that to be assessed, whether they're guilty or not. And then if it's not something, and some people believe in capital punishment, but even those instances, those are specific instances where somebody gets the death penalty. And it's just too often that we're killed without any kind of redress, without any kind of regard for our lives, and often not having done anything whatsoever. And so the family of Miss Carey is come to speak out. Now, when this happened to Brother Trayvon, who, this was a non-state actor who executed Brother Trayvon. it came at a time when a lot of people just we had enough, or it was just a particular time that garnered a whole lot of support for the family and raised a whole lot of media, questions in the media, and it lasted even until the trial. The man was put on trial. Now, he was acquitted, but now we see the same thing happen, and Trayvon was not an isolated incident. The Malcolm X Grassroots Movement report, which we've featured on the show many times, shows that every 36 hours, a black person in this country is executed by a police officer, a security guard, or a vigilante, and often not having done anything. So this is something we have to get a handle on. We're going to play a clip from the family, a press conference that they were at where they talked about, and right now we've seen them be on MSNBC or some other news, and they're depicting them. Even the way they did it, the interview was spliced in such a way that it's still focused on Mariam Carey, and still not what the family is calling for, an examination of the police actions. So if we can go to the press conference.
We still haven't been properly notified by government officials that Miriam actually was deceased. We did have an opportunity to go and identify the body, but just through a photograph, which, still didn't help, with the pain that we're feeling. I found out just at the same time that the rest of the world was finding out through the television, so it's still not real, and very unfortunate. I can tell you that she was a woman that, law-abiding citizen, carefree, loving, just like anyone else. She had a baby, and she did suffer from postpartum depression with psychosis, which comes along with medication and therapy, which she did. She was very compliant with her medication. At the time that she was diagnosed with that, as you know, depression can have a certain level of instability at that time, which is why she was diagnosed. We don't know why Miriam ended up going to D.C. We don't know at that time if her depression, contributed to her going and taking that ride. We don't know what was in her mind at that time. I do feel that law enforcement could have handled the situation a lot differently. How do you know what was in the mind of the individual that was in the car? Only after the fact they understood and delved into her life and understood that she was a person that happened to be going through depression at one point with psychosis. Her mental status has no bearings on what happened. It doesn't contribute to the events.
My family is seeking answers. We have questions. There's a mother who has lost a daughter. My sisters and I, we have lost a sister. And my niece has lost her mother, and we need to know why. My mother deserves that. It's a shame. It is a shame that my mother, my sisters, and I had to find out from reporters that called us and asked us to watch the news. It's a shame. Shame on the metropolitan D.C. area personnel for not informing us of what has happened to my sister. No one deserves this. Deadly physical force was not the ultimate recourse, and it didn't have to be. And you have to ask yourself, as Americans, is it okay for that to happen? Because it can happen to you. And if we are okay with that, then I feel sorry for all of us. Why was my sister shot and killed with her 1-year-old daughter in the car and she was unarmed? Why? My mother deserves to know why. We deserve to know why.
The chief of police of the Metropolitan Police Department, she did something that's very irresponsible. She rushed to judgment. What she said was, we don't think it's an accident. We don't know anything yet. All we know is we have a woman that was in a car with a 1-year-old child, and now there was some firearm discharges and someone's dead. Why and on what facts and circumstances led to the shots? We don't know yet. Is it justified? Or does it get to a point where the justification is no longer there and then it becomes excessive force? That's what we're going to do. We're not going to just work on what the government premises. We're going to do our own investigation.
And that was the press conference with the Carey family talking about their sister, their late sister, Miriam Carey, who was executed by the police. And if you listen to it, and we have in the studio brother Gnaka Lagoke, who's here to talk about other things, but, feel free, brother, to jump into this. But if we listen to it, they're asking the kind of questions that the media should be asking. When they're talking to the authorities and whatnot. I remember that press conference with Kathy Lanier and I guess it was another spokesman for the Capitol Police. And they, Kathy Lanier said that they acted heroically and all these kind of things without, under the circumstances, I don't know how you could even use those words that they acted heroically. And then everyone seen the clip that was captured. They played it over and over, rolled it over and over again on television. It was captured by a foreign media journalist. And it shows, when I first looked at it, and I saw it, on the day of the afternoon, it shows her after, this is allegedly after she came from the White House all the way down to the Capitol, driving around in like, looks like a roundabout. They had her cornered. Everyone saw that, and they're surrounded with the police, guns pointing at her. You can't hear what they're saying. You don't know what they're saying. She tried to get away. She didn't try to attack anybody, but she, sometimes people get hit when she's trying to get away. Why she did, we don't know. Then she goes behind the bushes where you can't see. That's when the gunfire shots, the first round of gunfire. Then you see that she's gotten away. I couldn't imagine that she wasn't hit by, a bullet, or it's amazing that she wouldn't have been hit at all. And it's actually the child was in the car. They had to see that child there. But instead they ignored that and were shooting. Then she goes around, and at some point you're seeing a police car in front of her and one behind her. The police car in front of her doesn't try to cut her off or stop. It's almost like it's going away from her, and so she's able to get through that and then drive to another area where they evidently, she crashed into something, maybe from her wounds, or and then what actually, we don't know what happens then. And they said they claim they rescued the child. Now this is the kind of thing that the next clip we're going to show shows how the journalism and is really the corporate media can be so complicit in trying to take on the narrative. There's evidence. The CNN unwittingly, Wolf Blitzer is interviewing an eyewitness account to what happened, and unwittingly this witness, both of them just talking about what happened, he's interviewing her, reveals that allegedly, according to her, she describes a situation where the police pulled the child out of the car and then they shot her. That means she had to be at a full stop, for them to get the child out of the car, and then they proceed to shoot her. All accounts say that she's unarmed. So why, they couldn't pull her out the car and, whatever they had to do, but instead another hail of bullets. This is what the eyewitness says, and we'll play that clip now. Is Wolf Blitzer interviewing an eyewitness to the scene or issue.
Joining me now, Patty Bills. She was an eyewitness to the incident up on Capitol Hill today. Patty, so what happened?
Pretty frightening. I work right there at Faith in Action, which is on 2nd Street that comes to the corner of Maryland. And first I heard a lot of the sirens. I heard a lot of commotion. You could hear from the police cars, which took me to the 2nd floor, which is a very good view. Wide open windows. I looked out, and that's where I saw the vehicle speeding down, the black car that hit. It appeared to be the police officer's trash can is standing there, and a police car which turned the car sideways. There's a little window booth where the policemen stand and the security guards that guard us every day on the corner. And at that time, the car was surrounded by police and a lot of armed men. And that's where the gunfire began.
Did you see the child in the car, too?
That's when I saw them trying to pull someone from the car and realized when they actually pulled someone from the car, it was a child. And it takes you back a little bit at that moment. And as soon as the child was pulled from the car is when the gunfire really let loose.
And you heard the gunshots?
I heard the gunshots. I saw the policeman shooting. It appeared someone got out, and it looked like a rush of people running. So at that particular time, you didn't know if there was more suspects involved.
You must have been scared out of your mind.
Very frightened.
What did you do?
At first, when you go to the window, you go and just wondering what is happening. Because when you hear the police cars and the sirens, you know, as an arrested person, want to look. But then when the gunfire started, I stepped back from the window. But then out of curiosity, you wanted to peer around just to see. And then it became very involved. A lot of gunfire, a lot of police, a lot of security. And at that particular time, I went back downstairs and came right out the door to ask the police what was going on and what could we do to be safer.
How are you doing now?
I'm better now. It was very emotional earlier. It's a very tough and frightening thing when you have that many gunfire happening around you and bullets flying and just the commotion. We've had a lot go on in D.C. lately.
Certainly have. I'm glad you're okay, Patty. Thanks very much for coming in.
Oh wow, that was a clip from Wolf Blitzer on CNN interviewing who they said was an eyewitness, and she seemed like she was there. She saw something. She described it very vividly, like as if she was really there. And not once did he stop. I mean, what do you think about that? Right? I just got. You look like you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Netfa.
Speak right into it.
Thank you very much, Netfa, for having me here in the studio. And yeah, I've seen in the news, you know, the story of Miriam Carey, and like many individuals, you know, I wanted to know more, so I read, and then I was surprised to know that, you know, all accounts said that she was unarmed, and then all accounts said also that, you know, there was a baby in the car, and then like the witness just described, it looked like they killed her after, you know, pulling the baby out of the car. So yeah, it is a very bad signal that, you know, the federal government is sending out in the community. You know, they said yesterday it was Trevor Martin who was killed because somebody was standing on his ground, and this time it is the federal government that is standing on his ground and is shooting an unarmed black woman. But coming back to the media. For somebody like me coming from Africa, you know, when we were there, we heard that, you know, the international media or the European countries' media, you know, knew how to do journalism. So I've been living here for a couple of years, and then I can tell you that the news here do not know how to ask questions. And the news here will protect some interest. And today it is about the death of Miriam Carey. Well, let's talk about that gentleman or that person who entered the theater and who shot that many people, you know, at the screen of Batman. Mm-hmm. You will see all the media interviewing people who were there. And I saw a woman, I think she has a 4-month baby in a movie theater at midnight. And then you won't see any journalist asking her, Madam, what are you doing at midnight with a 4-year-old baby, you know, at midnight in a movie theater? No one will ask that question. Or maybe because, you know, the media wanted to protect some interest. So it's the same thing today, and I'm not surprised. And I think that people who feel like they're victims of those extrajudicial killings need to organize more and better. And if not, you know, we may, all of us, end up dead, either like Trevor Martin or like Miriam Carey.
And then so many others, like we said, every 36 hours. Now, in the beginning, the mainstream media portrayed the incident as some kind of dramatic gun battle and a car chase involving a deadly terrorist who had attempted to attack the White House. And as the truth began to emerge, and we come to see this Carey's worst crime really appears to have been driving erratically and freaking out at a checkpoint when the police guns were aimed at her. Now, you know, perhaps anyone, you know, cognizant of the fact that cops routinely shoot unarmed, innocent people for no reason whatsoever, particularly black people, you know, maybe she panicked and tried to escape because of that. You know, people do, you know, how people respond to things differently.
Particularly, you know, when people say that she was not stable, particularly, you know. So if you are depressed and then you panic, you know, by the checkpoint, you know something.
Yeah, and I'm not a. You know, I don't know not much of anything about psychology, maybe a little, but I don't know if depression makes people, drive across state lines to come and, but, for all accounts, not just her family, but the doctor she worked for, everyone said that she was a stable person, aside from the depression. Other than that, and postpartum depression doesn't seem to, as far as I know, can't lead people to be demented and psychotic in that sense. But they did mention, her sister did mention something. So we don't, but the point is I think none of those things really they're irrelevant. If they're true, they're irrelevant because she didn't do anything that warranted being executed. I think this is something that, I think we should open the phone lines to and hear what other people think, because we're not, I've talked to some people on the street, and some people are, particularly right after it happened, some people were taking the lead of the media. Okay. And some people were saying, well, she shouldn't have been there with her child. And, obviously if a person has mental issues, then that explains why. But people will talk about it as if, on condemnation. And no one was saying. And then there was one person I talked to was talking about the police. He admitted that the police probably knew the child was in there, had to know. But then he said, but they're trained, they can shoot precision, and they were shooting at her, and she shouldn't have had any business there. And I'm like, wow, this is how that's that's
the power of the media too, to shape the minds of the people, so that to justify, the unjustifiable.
But I've also heard other people respond just like I did when I first saw it. It's like they couldn't shoot out her tires, or they couldn't do certain things. How was she able to get all the way from the White House all the way to the Capitol? And evidently she did, I suppose. They're saying that. And then we're still very unclear on what the initial thing at the White House was. We don't know what precipitated. We just know what they're saying, what they're speculating. And so the number, if you want to get in this discussion, we're only going to talk about it for a little bit because we want to talk about the 26th commemoration of the assassination of Brother Thomas Sankara, president of Burkina Faso. But you want to get in the conversation, the number to call is 202-588-0893. And we'll take a couple comments about it. But, a lot of people, after, things like this happen, with any kind of incident in the news, it takes some time for information to come out. Initially they can actually, and then even then, the initial narrative shapes what information people look for and pay attention to. And so, with this whole focus on her motives, they keep saying her motives for what?
Maybe they may be aware of something, they haven't, shared yet enough with the public. Maybe so. This is why we should be asking them, like the family is saying, that they want to know why,
and then make a really investigation. But they don't look like they're intending to investigate anything. So we really need to be behind the family and organizing, and at least deferring to their. Respecting their approach and everything, because sometimes people don't want a whole lot of people around involved in something, but sometimes they do, and they really need to have them, because it's really not just about her, it's about all of us. And then lastly, it's a very interesting, and this is when we say the complicity of the state, where the same disregard and for our lives, human life, black lives, is complicit even when we look at the Congress. Here's a clip where the Congress were actually praising the police for having executed an unarmed woman with a child. Can we go to the clip with the Congress? Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know anybody was. So we have a caller on the line, so we'll go to that first, so we don't keep them holding. Caller? Oh, you on the line?
Oh, yes. I have two questions. Number one, well, how do they know who was actually in the car if they did not allow the family to identify the body? Number two, why was the family not allowed to have access to the child? How did they stop that? So who was actually in the car, and why did they not allow them to identify the body? And second, why did they not let them have her child? I think those questions are very serious things that need to be answered.
Those are very good questions, because that's right. I remember initial reports. The last we know is that the child was in custody and they were not able to, they didn't give the child over to them, which is very odd. And then one of the things was they said the child was not seriously harmed. I remember the first reports. They never said the child wasn't harmed at all, was completely safe. And they started shaping that narrative. They started saying, well, it was something they said that implied, well, may have been some harm to the child, but she wasn't seriously harmed. And so, which could be hypothetical, could be a reason for them not turning the child over to the family, because they didn't want the family to see that she might have been harmed. Is there somebody else? All right, we have another call on the line?
Yes.
Thank
brother?
you.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You're on the line.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, brother, that the police surely force. They could have shot the tires out or even wounded her.
Can you talk directly into your phone, or if you're on a cell phone, we need you to be still so we can hear you?
Can you hear me now, brother?
Yeah, that's good. That's better.
Okay, I just wanted to say the police used too much force. They could have wounded the woman, and even if she had some kind of psychological issues that brought her to D.C., driving from Connecticut with a child in the car, they could have done something else other than killing her.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So you think force? They use too much force, but you think they? Go ahead.
Yeah, too much force, and if she was undergoing a psychotic episode, they should have wounded her or shot the tires out or something. You just don't go.
Yeah, I don't know if they needed to wound her at all. It didn't seem like that was really necessary to me. But okay, thank you for your comment, though. So it looks like a lot of people have some opinions about it, and not too many of them are different from ours. You go ahead, caller. You're on the line.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I agree with the other caller that they should have just at the tires and that. But there is a video that has been circulating that shows that one of the, I don't know, it was National Capitol Police were on top of the hood of her car. So with that, that shows the ability to do that. They did that they could have been tried to shoot the tires out. And this was before hitting one of the barricades. Now, to me, it looked like it was on Capitol Hill. Also, we need to look at another factor here. They claim the excuse, the depression, and on medicine. And then, of course, with the Navy Yard shooter, the same so-called excuse, and where it shows like a little history of that. And if we look at Virginia Tech. But what we see here is that when it comes to these type of situations, and I would even equate it to be like mind control, there is nothing done to say, okay, what to help so that somebody needs that needs help medically or depression or whatever has that. For example, if you look at the just what happened the week before the Navy shooting and with Virginia Tech, these were people that were able to get weapons, more importantly with the Navy Yard crossed from Virginia over into D.C., and so that's what also needs to look at here. And I agree with you saying that there shouldn't have been a need of use to deadly force. There would have been alternates to that. And then I also need to remind you, too, that if there is an investigation, please let us pursue on it, because today I am going over to the Mexican embassy because today is the grandson of Malcolm X's birthday. And we called for an investigation, and unfortunately, people have not responded as such. I'll be a lone soldier there, out with a sign, but I will be in solidarity with my Mexican comrades, the Afro-Mexicans who are in solidarity with me in Mexico City, because they have been asking questions like I have. Thank you.
All right. So we hope that you don't that you try to organize with some people and not just go out there by yourself. But so that's good to hear. And so we hope that we're a stronger force when we're organizing and we're in numbers. So we want to do things in numbers. We have another caller. Just two more calls. After this, we're going to go to Ivory Coast. Go ahead, caller. You're on the line.
Hey, brother Netfa. This is Mark. How you doing?
All right. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing fine. Listen, I have a very serious question. My question is, do you think because due to the political climate that's going on with America and global politics and terrorism, will that be used as a cloak to give police more power to commit these homicides under the name of terrorism? I know they didn't use that, but it seemed like they treated her as a terrorist.
Right.
Because they chased her down and just like committed unjustifiable homicide, but yet, like you said, the state doesn't raise any questions.
Yeah, well, certainly. In fact, the media was talking about it and initially reporting it as if there was exchange of gunfire. In fact, I remember them using the word exchange of gunfire. There was no exchange. The police were the only ones with guns, the only ones shooting. And so the initial reports that the media was claiming that there was some type of possibly some terrorist act or something. And when they do that, they've talked to some state authorities who claims that, they'll put out the initial, this is what's happening and this is what we think is happening. And so it's always, again, that complicity, that relationship between the state and the media, the fourth branch of the government, as they call it. And so this is the last, we'll take one last caller and then we're going to go to the next top segment of the show. Thank you, caller.
Hi, this is Gloria. I believe that they sat her and treated her in the manner that they did because they did indeed, just as the gentleman said, treat her as a terrorist, even though they were the ones with the guns. But they couldn't contain her, they couldn't control her, and so they acted over ambitiously and over aggressively. There was no need to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
There was no need to kill her, but I believe because of their own fear. Because of their own fear, they did what they did, and I do think that it does need to be further investigated, and I hope that justice is served in some kind of manner behind all this crap that we deal with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you for your call.
I'd like to make a last comment on that situation. I think I heard the callers saying that they should not have killed her, but it looked like they wanted to kill her. That was the purpose of the police, because if you look at the car, you look at the car's tag, you can see who is the owner of the car. So they have all the I believe that they have all the information about the lady, and then after chasing her, they decided to kill her. Certainly to send a message to people that you don't play, maybe you don't play like in the backyard or in the vicinity of the White House or the Capitol, and maybe that was the message in order to show maybe an exhibition of
force,
of power,
And then we don't want to forget, because we started off, we played that clip from the Wolf Blitzer. We don't want to forget what that revealed to us. That person, that eyewitness, if we go by what they said and believe what they said, she said they took the baby out and then shot her.
Yeah.
Car had to be at a full stop.
Everything. They have all the details about the lady, and they decided, to kill her.
And if you shoot tires out, there's no need to do anything. If you shoot tires out, it's not fast. The car can't go that fast, and you can always block it in. I mean, they show the super police and everything. And I don't know. The last call said they act out of fear. If they're that afraid, then it's not the job for them. If to be able to look at a mother with a baby in the car and become so afraid that you got to use deadly force, then they're not protecting. They're not, as they say, serve and protect. They're not protecting anybody. In fact, they are the threat. They are the danger to us. And it's a shame when we have to be more afraid of the police. Then it's not a shame. That's their purpose. That's their role. Actually, people need to know the history of the police has always been as agents of the state, to protect the state and to protect the property of private property of the capitalists, or to hunt down the ex-slaves. That's where the history is that in the South is that the slave patrols that hunt down antebellum South with the slave patrols. They hunted down runaway slaves, evolved into the police force. That, and along with private security agencies, private security firms, who were there to break up workers' strikes and protect the property of the warehouses and property of the capitalists, is where the present day modern police force evolved from. And so that whole serve and protect image that they give was a latter thing, a spin they put on purpose to help us, realize officer friendly. I mean, they went out on public relations campaigns to convince people whether the police are a public service and the serve and protect. That was after these things. There's a report by the Center for Criminal Justice, which is, I don't even know if they are still around, but the report was called The Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove, an analysis of the U.S. police. And they, go through all this, not just the police forces, but also the CIA and FBI and all these kind of things, and how they've actually been designed to uphold interests that are not in line with the general population. Initially the reports reported that somehow she tried to breach a sensitive White House property. And the checkpoint was when it looks like apparently the checkpoint was a temporary outer perimeter fence, making it quite possible that Carrie was confused, frightened that why she was being stopped at first. Now, this means that she wasn't really at a place where it had any threat. There was any threat to the White House or anything. And so they always make these reports to justify what they've done. So, we wanted to cover that. We're going to end this segment with showing how the Congress applauds the police force for executing an unarmed mother.
The gentleman from Maryland rise. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to speak out of order for 1 minute. The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the outset, I know that I join the majority leader in expressing our gratitude to the Capitol Police. Mr. Speaker, all too often we take the folks who are prepared to put their own lives and safety at risk to save from harm's way, not only those of us who work on Capitol Hill, but those who visit their capital. And so I know that round of applause was heartfelt and deeply meant. And we thank them, and I'll yield to the Majority Leader before I ask him a question on the schedule, but I'll yield to the Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the gentleman for yielding and concur with his thanks to the Capitol Police. And as well, each and every day, all of us benefit from their dedication and commitment to our safety, the people who visit this Capitol and its surroundings, to their safety. And I know all of us want to extend that thanks, and just to let them know we really appreciate it. I yield back.
That was a clip featuring House Majority Whip Steny Hoyer of Maryland expressing his gratitude to the police, and his words were followed by almost a minute of applause. A minute of applause, and then Representative Eric Cantor then remarks that the lawmakers really appreciate the D.C. cops for their actions for executing an unarmed woman, a mother, for no reason really. No good reason. And so, again, we're going to end it. This is the nature of the state. They're concerned about themselves. Even if they made those statements prematurely without knowing all the facts, they at least deserve out of respect for Carrie. They deserve to come back out and make another statement and say we apologize and we need to hold those men accountable for their actions, why they did all that. But of course, that's not the nature of the state and the government. And they're up here grappling and fighting over the shutdown. But when it comes to this, they're unanimous. They all stand up and they applaud about the execution of a person. So that was. Now we're going to go to Africa. And we're going to go to Ivory Coast. Brother Gnaka was gracious enough to come in here and give us an update because, again, things hidden from the headlines in Ivory Coast. And we said we don't get the news that we need to get. Even when they're talking about something, they put spin on it that just doesn't give us information and let us understand what's happening. You want to give us an update on that? And then you want to tell us about, this weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Netfa. As you know, on April 11, 2011, Gbagbo was captured by the French troops after the UN troops and the French troops and bombed Ivory Coast, the capital, the former capital Abidjan for 1 week.
With the complicity of the United States government?
With the complicity of the United States government. And the United States government, France, and the French troops, they gave, prior to the bombing, they gave the green light to Mr. Ouattara's rebels and who attacked the country in 2002. And we were controlling the northern part of the country for more than 8 years. And after giving them the green light, to attack, the troops of the army of Ivory Coast, when they saw that, the rebels could not defeat, the army loyal to Gbagbo, then they came with the bombings. But in Djokwe, when they attacked, more than 1,000 people were killed. And after that, what we heard in the news, Gbagbo was the tyrant, and because of him, there were, the death of 3,000 people. So all the media, as we talk about media, all the media, you can see they will repeat the same thing, that the soundbite that everyone has to say. 3,000 people are killed in Ivory Coast. And we know that they did not want to take into account, the death caused, by the bombing of the French. After, you can imagine bombing a country for 7 days,
right,
and then you have only 3,000 people killed, and we have 1,000 killed in Djokwe. We knew that the number was fixed. The same way, they did not want people to know the reality about the election. And as I said, I cannot prove Gbagbo won the election, but I can prove certainly that the UN, they fixed the election in order to declare Alassane Ouattara the winner. Now, in the context of conflict and war, in the name of justice, if you want to prosecute, two groups of people who have been fighting for 10 years or even for 1 year, for 2 or 3 months, then you come and take people from both sides. So what did we see? After almost 3 years now, after the capture of Gbagbo, only Gbagbo is now at the ICC. Gbagbo is at the ICC and has been there for more than 2 years. His wife is in the stronghold of the rebels in Odiene. She's in jail. The son spent 2 years in jail, and the dignitaries of Gbagbo's party were in jail. They freed only 10 of them. More than 700 people are in jail, and many people are still in exile. And then the asset, a couple of 400 people have the asset still frozen. And this is the environment in which, Alassane Ouattara's government is governing. And then the same media, they want to portray him as somebody who is bringing peace and development and reconciliation to Ivory Coast. So, thanks to people like you, you wanted to hear our whispers. And today, people who thought that Ouattara was a Democrat, they cannot come out because they know the reality. Even the Human Rights Watch, all those institutions now are denouncing the victor justice in the country. And then one of the latest I wanted to talk about is that I read in a credible news organization, I read that Mr. Ouattara and Jonathan Goodluck of Nigeria are battling, to have the headquarters and get ready for this of AFRICOM.
What?
Yes, I'm telling you. The Ouattara wants the headquarters of AFRICOM to be in Ivory Coast. Jonathan Goodluck wants the headquarters of AFRICOM to be in Nigeria. So that's why we stood against Ouattara, because they want to advance, the neocolonial policies, imperialism, and those neoliberal policies. That's why I stood against him.
Now, wasn't Goodluck against at first initially? In fact, no African nation.
Now, because of the situation of Boko Haram, that they can fix the situation of Boko Haram in Nigeria. They just have to have a developmental state, and they just have to have a modern state. They just have to put modernity in the practices, and then I think they can deal with Boko Haram. But he's not doing that. and now he thinks that by having the support of AFRICOM, of the United States, you're going to go in and then defeat,
Wow.
So that's the situation. So this is what is going on in the countries, and the reconciliation forum that was put into place, in Ivory Coast is not functioning. The process of reconciliation is stalled, and they tried to build a couple of streets or roads, that are not finished yet. So what I cannot say in 3 years, that Ivory Coast is better off with him than it was with Bible. He cannot say that.
It's interesting how people, it seems our attention the media also tells us when to pay attention to stuff. So we were paying attention to Ivory Coast when the media and
say
the
that we should pay attention. When they say no, it's not over. Now everybody goes on Egypt. Right. When it's over with Egypt, we go on Syria.
But if we keep paying attention, even after they tell us not to, that's when really revealing things happen.
Yeah.
And then we need to help us really understand what's going on. Like you said, there's nothing. They often do this with so many. Libya, all these places, they will make act like there's some urgent need to go in, and then once they've done what they've done and no one's paying attention, that's when the real, atrocities take place and when people really get to suffering.
Like the first Babo's wife, she's in Odiene. The ICC wants to try her. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine? You take Babo. You don't take any person from Ouattara's camp, and the ICC wants Babo's wife. The ICC wants the leader of the Babo's Young Patriots group, Blé Goudé. And now Ouattara, because he sees himself like in a difficult situation, now said that he can trial Babo's wife in Ivory Coast, and because he does not want to give up any of his warlords.
I just want to give you an opportunity to say, because some people would hear this and say we're going to get to the forum of Thomas Sankara will hear you, because I get this too, and say, well, you're an apologist for Gbagbo, or you're this, Netfa was interviewing this Gbagbo supporter. How would you?
It's not even a problem, and I said it. I supported Gbagbo, and when I was young, I worked in his newspaper in the 80s in Africa, when many leaders were fighting for freedom, and they thought that they needed to go through armed struggle. Gbagbo spoke about a peaceful transition to democracy in Africa. It was great, and while Ivory Coast returned to multi-party system in 1990, you saw that Charles Taylor was doing a civil war in Liberia. Mm-hmm. So Gbagbo Laurent symbolized the aspirations of millions of Africans. And then, of course, when he came to power, because of some contradictions, because maybe he thought that he was strong enough, to go against imperialism, and he made some mistakes. And even before he came to power, I had a fallout with Gbagbo. That's why after 4 years working in his newspaper, I left his newspaper. So this is part of my history. Mm-hmm. People know that it's on. So I left his newspaper for 4 years, after working there for 4 years, and then I came to to the U.S. 10 years I stayed here. I wanted, to support him, because between Gbagbo and Alassane Ouattara, at least Gbagbo Laurent symbolizes, this aspiration of people wanting to see a better Ivory Coast. And for 10 years, the same way I'm here standing in your studio with you, I never had that privilege and the opportunity to sit down with Gbagbo so that we can talk about anything I wanted to bring, to his administration. So, but when I came out, to talk to denounce the imperial system in Ivory Coast after the electoral stalemate, I did it. It's a sense of responsibility, and also
it's more about being anti-imperialist.
It's more about the sovereignty of my nation, and more about the vision we are promoting. For
sovereignty of Africa, we need to get past.
So it's more about the sovereignty of Ivory Coast and Africa. That's why we did that.
Now we want to because we don't have. I need to bring you back, because a lot of things you touched on, we want to talk about. Not just for you, but the whole multi-party system versus single. Because I don't believe it's a reflection of democracy, but that's another issue for another day. This weekend, Revival of Pan-Africanism will be commemorating the 26th anniversary of the assassination of Thomas Sankara, the late president of Burkina Faso. Let's start really quickly by telling people who Thomas Sankara is.
Yeah, so when, Mandela was in jail, Gbagbo was in exile, he went to exile in 1982. In 1983, Thomas Sankara became, the president of Burkina Faso. And he undertook the people-centered development, and he put, the people of Burkina Faso and the people of Africa in the center of the vision he was promoting, which was a self-reliant and self-sufficient Burkina Faso for a self-sufficient,
socialist
and African socialist Africa. And he was assassinated by neo-colonial forces who used, his friend, Blaise Compaoré, the current president of Burkina Faso. And for us, he's a great hero.
In 87.
In 87. And then that's why, when we talk about leadership in Africa, is the embodiment of sincerity and honesty of somebody who was trying to do the right thing. Because in 4 years, it could change the destiny of, the destiny, the way people saw Burkina Faso, and Thomas Sankara did it.
Just tell us about the event this weekend.
Okay, so we are going to do the second edition of the Thomas Sankara's conference we organize every year. So this year, the Revival of Pan-Africanist Forum, I represent All African Revolution People Party, represented by my friend Njiba, and the Friends of the Congo, represented by Maurice Kane, and EPIL, Inc., represented by Lansana Mack, and also Answer Coalition, represented by our friends Brian Becker and Eder Beno and Akufuna. We are going to organize a conference, to commemorate, the legacy, the life, the achievement of Thomas Sankara when he was the president of Burkina Faso. Last year we did it, and then there was also a celebration of Thomas Sankara's legacy we organized at Oxford University last year too.
Where and what date?
We will do that on Saturday, October 12 at 3:30 at the Festival Center. And those four people I just mentioned.
1640 Columbia
1640
Road?
Columbia Road, Northwest.
Yeah. And then people can get more information, and there's like a Eventbrite page. Right?
Yeah, there's Eventbrite page, Thomas Sankara's conference.eventbrite.com, something like that. Yeah.
Thomas Sankara conference.eventbrite.com. Yeah, that's right. I think that's right. So, brother, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have you back if we didn't spend so much time talking about the sister who was actually, but we had to do that. But, you and I can talk for a long time for different stuff, and there's a lot to talk about, and we can open the phone lines about Africa next time. And Pan-Africanism, and how we're all Africans. And then we need to get together and free ourselves all around the world, wherever we are. So you've been listening to Voices with Vision on 89.3 FM, Washington. My name is Netfa Freeman. I'm in the studio with Brother Gnaka Lagoke and Revival of Pan-Africanism. And stay tuned. Stay tuned. Join us next week, but stay tuned here for Brother Roast Brown and Crossroads.
You're listening to Voices with Vision, a progressive mix of voices, news, music, and spoken word, brought to you by the DC Radio Co-op and played on WPFW 89.3 FM, Washington, D.C., every Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Bring out the rebel, bring out the rebel, bring out the rebel. Help me.
I'm Reem Kathuda. This was Voices with Vision
at 89.3 FM.
This is member supported.
WPFW, Washington.
Another man done gone. Another man done gone from the county farm. Another man done gone.
Huh? I didn't know. What? I'm just going across the street. Shut your mouth. Oh, no. What'd I do? Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. Let's go. Let's go.
A jury of your peers having found you guilty. 10 years.
What? Come on. Get in that cell.
I was in jail, too, man. It's cold-blooded in the jail. You go down there looking for justice. That's what you find. Just us.
Welcome to another edition of Crossroads Today. Now here's your host, Roach Brown.
Good morning and welcome to Crossroads. As usual, this is our regular time at 11 on Tuesdays. We have an interesting show this morning.